This is a review for the Star Wars Jedi Survivor tie-in novel, Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars. For a quick spoiler-free review, I'll say this. This book is written like a young adult sort of romance story featuring Merrin and her love interest, with somewhat explicit scenes. There are fun little nods to things that happen in the game, but this takes place between the two, with the story not having a lot of stakes, and I cannot imagine there being a lot taken from this book that will come into Jedi Survivor. The romance has no lead up, and I'm not sure it's a positive for the characters or the story, and the main antagonist is barely in it. It isn't the worst thing I've ever read, but I'd solidly say that it is quite skippable. So with that said, let's get into the weeds, which means from this point on, I'll be talking about the events that happen in the book, so there will be spoilers. Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars takes place during a 5-year gap between Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. After the events of Jedi Fallen Order, the crew of the Mantis have strived to keep themselves hidden from the Empire. There isn't a whole lot of information about what the crew have been doing since the events of Fallen Order. We just know they have been constantly on the move, and they keep running into the Haxian brood. Unfortunately, the book is obsessed with Fret the stormtrooper and her sexual objectification of Merrin. It starts off during a mission to infiltrate a Haxian brood base that is carved into an asteroid, but of course things go awry and the crew have a narrow escape with the help of a stormtrooper who wants to defect. She has information that could help bring down the Empire. No, not really, but she does have a job about a device, which might not be a real thing, as no one has made one, but it might be bad, so go do a thing for some rich dude named Cere. I like that the crew have fitted into roles, and Merrin has become fully integrated with everyone, and throughout the book, all the Mantis crew view the little group as family. It is a nice touch to show how they all work together, as in the game only Cal seems to really do anything, but perhaps they'll play more of a role in the new game, with them all working together. The Shroud, however, is a non-starter, as this story takes place between The Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and while I am aware that the Empire are far too stupid to succeed, even they would probably use the Shroud, which is supposed to be uber stealth tech. But they didn't, nor does anyone else, so the Shroud therefore never gets made. Nothing is going to happen to the fifth brother, as his story continues in Star Wars Rebels, which happens 5 years after the next game, which this story takes place before. So nothing is going to come of the thing we are looking for, nothing is going to happen to the main villain of the story, and none of the main characters are going to get killed off in a supplementary book to promote the next game. There are no stakes, zero sense of threat. The A plot is a wash, and the B plot, the romance story for Merrin? Well, that's just unhealthy. Merrin is overcome with lust for Fret, the alien stormtrooper. As soon as Fret notices this, she uses this to her advantage. Get Merrin on side, then the rest of the crew will have a much harder time of kicking her off the ship, which exactly is what the rest of them want to do, until she tells them that she has a job for them, which she embellishes to get the rest curious enough to accept. Suddenly, Merrin is manipulated into a toxic relationship. Merrin was struggling to use a Knight system magic, but having sex with Fret fixes that. For reasons. It's not just Merrin. None of the crew of the Mantis are left unscathed in one way or another. Greez, however, suffers the least, but they do force him to go into a dangerous situation just to get his arm cut off, while Merrin sits around on the ship being horny and simping over Fret. This felt more like a tick box because they needed Greez to lose an arm rather than the situation naturally occurring. Cere is referred to as a Jedi Master, which I'm pretty sure she isn't, and she decides that stopping the Empire isn't as important as creating a new Jedi library and wants to go around collecting Jedi artifacts. Cal is referred to as a Padawan, even though Cere made him a Jedi Knight. There are some nice moments, like when Cal uses his Force Echo to learn more about Fret, who he doesn't trust, but he often feels a bit like an afterthought, only really feels included because he is the star of the show. Merrin's missing her dry humour, which actually used this a lot during the first game, when she was just getting to know the crew, feels like a huge piece of her character is missing. With Fret, they outbreak into an Imperial facility, and turns out the schematics for the Shroud are only known in the head of Cere, who is Fret's lover. Fret thought she died 3 years ago, but instead she's been imprisoned and the Empire couldn't get the information from her. Purge troopers tried to stop the jailbreak, and while Merrin and Cal fight them during the chaos, Fret and Cere ditch the others and make a break for it. The fifth brother shows up and fights Cal. This first meeting of the villain takes place over halfway into the book. Cal gets defeated. Cere wants to try and turn everyone away from the dark side, but she fails because of her, Greez loses his arm. Fret and Cere are wounded and realizes there isn't any other option, so they return to the Mantis. Fret uses Merrin's feelings for her to persuade her to help them. Merrin uses her Night System magic to heal Cere. Merrin is then too exhausted to heal anyone else. They get away and take time to recuperate and reflect. Cere, having been secretly imprisoned for 3 years, and then told by the person she loved and who she thought loved her, has now moved on, is definitely salt in the wound, and so Fret abandons her to have sex with Merrin. This is the kind of person who Fret comes across as. She says things but doesn't mean it, and she just uses people for her own gratification and to further her own ends, and then gaslights them. Everyone comes back to the Mantis, and they decide no one should have the Shroud, so they plan to double-cross Kursla, as they don't trust him. Ironic. Luckily, this is Star Wars, so of course this person was doing all this in bad faith, so they immediately get surrounded by the Haxian brood when they confront him. They take them all out, only for the fifth brother to show up. Merrin and Cal fight him to a standstill and use a Shroud replica bomb to blast him out of the building. Fret and Cere leave the crew of the Mantis to go into hiding, as they need to make sure the plans for the Shroud don't ever fall into the wrong hands. The end. Now, Star Wars for me is a bit of a mixed bag, and so is this book. The inclusion of things like the little boggling stowaway and Greez's plants made me quite happy in their inclusion, but as you can tell, I really didn't buy into Fret. Characters seem to like her for no reason, and Merrin gets manipulated and used by her. Everyone else ends up leaving with good feelings towards her. It's really sad to see, as Merrin was scared about opening up to people, but learns through the crew of the Mantis that she can. She then opens up to Fret immediately and gets toyed with. If this was supposed to come across as a romantic story of two people on opposite sides and finding love, they missed the mark. I think if that's what they wanted to create, then I feel it would have been better served outside of the stakes of the story. Make it a bit more of a slice of life. Have the story take place over a few years. Have the crew go on adventures where they have to defend themselves from the Haxian brood. They discover information about the mysterious Shroud that the Imperials are developing, and then have them spend the novel looking for clues about what it is and where it is located. Have them keep going back to some backwater world that has minimal Imperial presence, where Merrin meets a woman in a cantina. Over time, she keeps running into her on that world, and Merrin saves her from some thugs or something to cement trust. A relationship over time is formed, and they get really close. Eventually, Merrin finds out she is a stormtrooper, and the stormtrooper finds out that Merrin is wanted by the Imperials. Both are torn on what to do. Merrin hides everything from the crew. Then they find out where the shroud is. They have an epic fight against the fifth brother, but Cal takes a beating. Cere tries to defend him, but tries to turn him, but fails. Merrin fights off purge troopers, and Greez destroys the shroud while everyone is distracted, but gets his arm cut off for the trouble. And they manage to flee. They return to the planet. A few weeks pass, they think they are all good, but then suddenly they get attacked by stormtroopers while off the ship. Merrin is heartbroken and thinks the stormtrooper is responsible. Separated from their ship, they seek refuge in an old factory. The crew is trapped and outnumbered by purge troopers, pinning them in. Then force fields suddenly are raised at the last minute, stopping the purge troopers' advance. A series of doors and force fields lead them out. A few stormtroopers that were left outside the factory take a few pot shots at the crew, but are gunned down by another stormtrooper. She takes off her helmet, and it is Merrin's stormtrooper. They all work together to fight their way back to the Mantis. The fifth brother shows up, and both Merrin and Cal manage to drive him off. Cere and the stormtrooper help Greez get back to the ship and prep it for liftoff. The stormtrooper is mortally wounded while trying to defend the Mantis, and safely in space, the stormtrooper dies in Merrin's arms. The same things happen. The story isn't all about some new character. I wouldn't hate them for being a scumbag. Maybe it is me, but I don't find someone who just wants to get into your pants when coincidentally they want something from you as romantic. And that's how that character comes across. And she is the whole through line of the story for this book. If their relationship was supposed to be genuine, then I feel it has failed at portraying that. And if it wasn't, then it diminishes Merrin's character. Unless she learns from the experience. But it did not come across as a teachable moment. And that was and that was Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars. I'm excited for the new game. There will be out soon, and I'm interested to see what carries over from this book.